What is going on, guys?
Hey, how's it going?
We are here today with our fourth part of 1991's Forgotten Albums in Hair Metal. And we have three more here for you, with a little bit of variety, actually, here. And that's just another thing that we like to say here on the channel is that in 1991 for hair metal, you had a lot of things going, and just rock in general, rock and metal. You had a lot of different sounds coming out at this time and growth and maturity. And I think these albums I'm going to show you here is going to help explain that and help show as an example of that. So, first and foremost, here, if you guys have not watched any of the other episodes of this Forgotten Albums in Hair Metal history, check it out. I'll put the link right here, and you guys can check that out after this episode. But let us get going here to our first choice for 1991. And our first choice here is going to be off of Virgin Records, and that is going to be Asphalt Ballet with their debut album. So this one here has a not a darker tone, but more of a serious tone to it, for when you are considering hair metal, hard rock, even like traces of like Southern style rock. You have 13 songs actually, which is kind of crazy to think about, but a couple of these songs are under 3 minutes long. You have one that's 2 minutes. The final track is 2 minutes and 20 seconds, just like kind of an acoustic outro song with lyrics. Like it's a good final song, which you could honestly say like track number 12 and 13 are you could kind of argue that feel like one song, but track number 12 is Blue Movie, which is a really cool slow mid-tempo song that adds like a saxophone in there, and it's just a great jazzy feel to it. And I think, and I'm one of the guys that do like horns in my heavy metal or hair metal.
I don't give a fuck.
I'm a fan of jazz and blues, so like I'm cool with any kind of horns in metal. So generally speaking, sometimes it doesn't work, but most of the times not, I enjoy it in my metal. So, but you did have three singles off of this album. Obviously, none of these albums that I'm going to show today did any kind of damage on the charts or no certifications or anything like that. But in 1991, they did release Soul Survive as the first single, Tuesday's Rain, and also Unlucky Mr. Lucky, which all three songs are really good. Now, Tuesday's Rain, very good. Not I don't think there's necessarily there I don't think there's really a ballad on this album, which is also like another thing that a strike against it, if you will, for going real mainstream. And but I think it's fine without having a ballad. But the closest thing to a ballad would probably be like Tuesday's Rain. Very good, heartfelt, emotional chorus in there. Gary's vocals are great. Now, with the second album, though, that they released, Pigs, in 1993, that I would say certainly went more on the darker side. I wouldn't necessarily say grunge, but Gary did end up leaving vocal duties because they were trying to change their sound more so. Like you can definitely tell they changed their sound compared to this album, the debut, compared to Pigs. So then they went and picked up Tommy on vocals, and it's good, but it's not nearly as good as the debut here. But still worth checking out though. So you got a couple of my favorite songs on here though is Heavy Wind Blows, Blood on the Highway. That is the first song because I found this album out on like YouTube when I was like 13, 14-ish, around that time in high school. And the first song was Blood on the Highway, and I was like, oh god, this song is badass. So Blood on the Highway probably is one of the heavier songs on the album, or kind of like the most party. It's not really like a party song, but in that it is more in that direction. But like I said, most of these do have a serious tone to it. There is no like real party, sex, drugs, and rock and roll type feel to it. But I like it though. I like it a lot. I like that seriousness because, like I said, and with the next album that we're going to be talking about, 1990, you started getting a little bit more serious. You started getting more mature in your songwriting and just like instrumentation, like the sound, like different instruments were coming in. It just showing different variety, and I really enjoy that. And that's why 1990 to 1993 is my favorite era of hair metal, and I think it blows away the early stuff as far as hair metal goes. But at the same time, it's all great. I mean, we're splitting hairs there at when we're starting to really dissect the years in the 10-year span of hair metal from like 1983 to 1993. So, but yes, now for a couple songs, please check out Tuesday's Rain, Unlucky Mr. Lucky, and Blood on the Highway. I think those three are probably the best on there. But hey, you got 13 tracks and they're all really good, and none really gets skipped, in my opinion. And on the iPod, they're all pretty much there. So certainly check out Asphalt Ballet's debut album from 1991.
Hey, Paul here from Paul Lydell's Scream Therapy, and you are watching the Krash Kourse Metal Show with Trevor Krash Knight.
All right, so now we are going to 19. Well, we're still in 1991, and we are going to Circle of Soul, Hands of Faith.
Hell yes.
So this one here is 11 tracks long. Really good album. Now, this album here, or this band, certainly has a soul feel to them, a little bit of funky style. Not so much funk like in the vein of, say, Extreme or Bang Tango. Nothing like that, but I think it's just it adds. They really, sell the soul because you have guys here that do just seem like they grew up in the city. They have that soul edge to them, and certainly in the songwriting, you hear that the bass is pretty done pretty well in the mix. I think it's not overly powering. It's not like something like Seinfeld bass, like nothing like that. But certainly it's there though. It has a good groove to it in a lot of these songs. But you got two. Well, one of the ballads is "One Kiss," and then also "Long Arm of the Law." Both of those are absolutely amazing, soulful, but still has great solos, guitar solos in there. And it's just great. I don't know how any of these songs didn't really gain any traction, especially like this time though. Like when you started having like bands like King of the Hill, and different kind of like White Trash, even you had bands like that in the rock and metal sphere, kind of going to the real funk and soul side of things. And I think, and that was pretty much when rap was starting to get its real, like starting to roll, mainstream wise, and I think there was something for some reason because they did up until like a couple months ago. I didn't know they actually had a second album in 1993, I believe, and I didn't know that because the drummer Aaron, I believe, he went and did touring and drummed on Duff McKagan's debut solo album in 1993, which is actually not a bad solo album. But I mean, if you're expecting like Appetite for Destruction, you're not really going to get that. But it's not bad, dude, nonetheless, which I didn't know he was on that. So that's pretty cool. So when I go back to re listen to it here, I'm going to be thinking about that. So, but nonetheless, though, guys, check out songs like Stone in My Shoe, Rusted Love, Shed a Tear, like Hard in the City, Ghetto Grind. Like there are lyrics here. There's messages in these songs like that have an edge, a city edge to it, a serious edge to it, which, like I said, a lot of 1991 and up, 1992 and 1993, the maturity was starting to be there. It wasn't all about partying anymore, which is fine. Like there are bands that were still talking about that and everything, which is absolutely awesome. I'm still cool, but you started getting that variety. You started getting different things that were being talked about and such. And I think and that's the thing with like, whether it was the music industry or grunge that killed hair metal, I think we got totally fucked over with like great different bands like this, great different sounds, great different albums that just got released and totally looked over. And that's it. You're done. Just one album and you're totally cut.
This sucks more than anything that has ever sucked before.
And it's a crime. It really is because like there was so much different stuff, and I could talk for days about that. And it's just when I listen to these albums, even like Asphalt Ballet, Circle of Soul, King of the Hill, it's just like, God, these bands got robbed, and I put them up there with any of the earlier bands as well from hair metal, and think that they're just as good or their albums are just as good. Like it wasn't just all copycats. And like a lot of people like to say, it's not copycats at all. Sure, there might be one or two bands or so, a handful of bands that were copycats and just not as good as the rest. But at the end of the day, they still put out good songs. And I mean, certainly this band here isn't in that example. They great writing all the way through their lyrics, great musicianship as well, great groove in these songs. But I think that has a lot to do with their soulfulness in some of these songs, and it's just very memorable stuff. So please check out Circle of Soul. Great stuff. I can't talk this enough because there's another one I had when I was in around the time I graduated high school or like a year or two after. So it's really early, like with Asphalt Ballet as well. I picked them up around roughly around the same time. And man, it's still in my ears today, and it's still just as good as when I first listened to it. And like I said, I'm a big fan of the blues and soul and funk and stuff like that. Whenever I don't listen to metal, so I tend to gravitate towards those subgenres of music as well. So Circle of Soul is just like a perfect match then for that. So like I'm way open to that type of idea and sound than say I guess maybe your average metalhead. So that, but nonetheless, still worth checking out, especially if you like the soulfulness and good bass work as well. So definitely check out Circle of Soul, Hands of Faith. Okay, so this one here is kind of interesting, which in our 1989 Forgotten Albums, we did talk about Vain. And as you can see behind me here, the debut album, No Respect. If you want to see that video, I'll put the link right here. But we're going to be talking about their second album, which a lot of people don't really know about because it was never really officially released back in 1991. And that is going to be Vain's second album, All Those Strangers. So one of the reasons why it didn't get released is because they got cut and released from their label Island in 1991. But this was written and ready to go in 1991 before they got dropped. And obviously we can kind of conclude why they got dropped is because of, the grunge scene, like a lot of these bands like Vain, the sleaze, hair metal stuff just was not in anymore. Record companies did not want this, didn't want to release it apparently, and just it wasn't money to be made anymore with these type of albums and bands. So you have here, well, Davy ends up releasing it independently, or like this. I got this through Davy Vain, reissue from 2009. So, but still though, when I listened to this album, I just recently picked this up when I bought the brand new album Disintegrate Together, which came out this year, 2024. I was like, okay, yeah, I needed it to have this second album because of how great No Respect is, and No Respect is certainly a top 50 hair metal album of all time. And I was like, I just gotta get. And I've been a big fan of Vain ever since high school. When I had that album, No Respect, me and my buddies, a lot of my buddies that aren't even in the rock and metal, dig songs off of No Respect. And so I'm like, yeah, this is a no brainer. When I got Disintegrate Together, I'm like, I might as well get like every other album that Davey has available because you're just not gonna be able to find them anywhere out in the wild or even on like Amazon anymore or anything like that. So, All Those Strangers though. Obviously did not chart, did not do anything, but that does not take anything away from how good these songs are and this album is. This album rivals No Respect. I know that's crazy to say that it rivals a top 50 hair metal album with their second offering here, and they got cut. Like you're kind of thinking like, oh, is there songs that just aren't as good? Is that kind of why they got cut too? Like did they? It was just a lot of bad things happened in 1991, 1992 for these bands to get cut, and just no one wanted to put money towards this and promoting it anymore. But you had songs like Love Drug, intro, or the first song, and just your classic Vain sounding song. Awesome. But I had to say, the next track, Planets Turning, awesome groove to it. Like Davey sounds really good on that song. And another one here, Here Comes Lonely, another mid-tempo type song that's really, really good. The only song on here is, well, you do have 11 tracks, I believe, on this. And only one I don't have on the iPod, and that is Freak Flag. It's okay. I mean, I'm not going to hate on anyone for liking it or anything like that, but it just, more times than not when I play this album, I kind of skip it. But nonetheless, everything else looks or sounds really, really good. I don't know. It's just a shame that this didn't get released because obviously in 1991, the chances of it actually doing something were pretty slim. But just to not have that opportunity for something like Love Drug or Planets Turning, you know, Wake Up or Here Comes Lonely, any of these songs are you could, like I said, this album you could put it up next to No Respect and it will hold its own. It will rival it. Now, is it better? I would say probably not. But man, I was super impressed when I listened to this when I picked it up, and I'm like, oh my god, I don't know why no one else, no other Vain fans really talk about this album as much. Is it just because it's hard to get? It's hard. People just don't have it in the collection like they do the first album or any of the other albums, or what the issue is. No one really looks it up on YouTube. I'm not sure what the deal is, but man, that's why I had to talk about it on this episode because I was super impressed with when I listened to it just this year. It took me 15 years to finally get the second album here from when I first bought the first album, but it was certainly worth the wait because it didn't let me down and awesome stuff. So like I said, Love Drug, check out Planets Turning, and also Here Comes Lonely, probably three of my favorite songs off of this album. It doesn't get much better for Vain, and I know No Respect had a lot of great songs, and I agree with that. But you can put up the best of this album up with the best of songs from No Respect, and it's going to be a close battle, and it's just awesome. Great solos. Davy sounds good on this album. Can't talk this up enough. And then then they did take a little bit of a break. A couple guys left the band. Then they end up reforming a couple years later, and they're still doing stuff today. So awesome. Mostly all original guys now in the band, and always pretty much throughout the whole discography catalog of Vain, and that's awesome. And you can tell that, especially on the new album or on the newer albums, you can tell it's all the same original guys because still has the great sound, great songwriting, everything. So definitely, guys, that wraps up this video. So check out Vain, All Those Strangers, the second album from Vain. Then we have the debut album here, Circle of Soul, Hands of Faith. If you like your slightly funky, but more so on the soulful side of rock and metal, definitely check them out. And then we had also from 1991, Asphalt Ballet with their debut album. A little bit more of a southern feel, more of a serious tone. And like I said, we got robbed in 1991, 1992 with this mature sound coming out and just great performances, musicianship, and everything as well. Just got cut down because there was no promotion behind it anymore, and the industry or slash grunge or a combination of things just was ready to blackball it and talk shit about it and just not, do anything with it anymore. So that wraps up the episode here, guys. Let me know what some forgotten albums. Let me know what you think of these albums, and then also let me know some forgotten albums that you guys think that are just totally under the radar, underrated, that just no one talks about in the world of hair metal.
Talk to me.
Guys, until next time, stay out of that collateral damage. And if you guys enjoyed this video, check out the rest of the episodes in the series right here.
Yeah, I wrote that. It's called I Want to Rock Your Body. And then in parentheses it says to the break of dawn.